But let's move into what I think was the best draft, the team that had the best draft in the 2018 NBA draft. I talked about it a little bit in the first segment, but that is the Phoenix Suns. Number 1 pick, they went with DeAndre Ayton. At the 16th pick, they went with Zaire Smith, but then traded him to Philadelphia for Mikal Bridges, and then the 2021 Miami Heat pick that is unprotected. And I think they got that in the Dragic trade, because those are the trades that, the Heat Suns connections. I think that's the one that's firing up in my mind. They get him, but then also the first pick of the second round, they go out and get Elie Okobo, the international point guard, 6'4", from France. I absolutely loved him. I thought he was a first-round prospect. They got three guys that I rated, 2 in my top 10 and 3 in my top 20. And all they had to give up for was Zaire Smith and a 2021 draft pick. And again, Zaire would have been a nice fit in Phoenix, but Mikal is ready now, and Mikal might end up costing less in the end, especially in the way that you probably are going to use him. It might cost less in the end than Zaire Smith. Now, if someone sees the potential, then they could always screw you over with an RFA and offer him more money. But I really love what Ryan McDonough did for the Phoenix Suns here. We talked about with Z, our patron, and if you do want to support us, check out patreon.com/mostofapodcast. If you want to be on a podcast, check out that $10 tier. But Z, he was on a podcast, and we talked about how DeAndre Ayton's fit would be with the Phoenix Suns. Guy went to high school for 2 years in Arizona, played his college ball at Arizona, and now he's fitting into this Arizona team. He's staying in that place that he grew up, and it's big. Not grew up, but at least played most of his basketball career. That's big because, again, those people are able to connect with you. That's going to get people into the stadium, especially if you're going to be playing and balling out, because Derrick Rose jerseys are still being sold in Chicago. DeAndre Ayton might be able to tap into that same connection. Now, D Rose was a Chicago kid. DeAndre Ayton from the Bahamas isn't a Phoenix kid technically, but he's a transplant, and we see a lot of these guys being transplant. In Phoenix, being so close, there's a lot of transplant. There's a lot of at least international people and a lot of immigrants in that Phoenix area, and they might adapt to not Mobamba, but DeAndre Ayton. It's been a long day, 4 hours of a live stream, and now doing an extra podcast. But they might latch on to DeAndre Ayton. And again, the fit is perfect. I mean, he's going to be able to, dominate inside, because I think this Phoenix team is going to spread it out. I think they're going to do a ton of passing. DeAndre Ayton's a pretty damn good passer for his own right, for a big man, for being 7'1", and his physical attributes on the pick and roll and on the low block is going to fit in that spacing, offense. And he even himself can stretch out the floor a little bit. If they throw in a guy like a Tyson Chandler and then move Ayton to the 4, that will give the ability to keep that space still. You put Chandler in the middle, and then you have on the outside Ayton. Now, I think Ayton's going to be, like Dragon Bender, shooting threes, or at least consistently, but I think Ayton can at least, show that range from 17 to 20 feet, and be fairly consistent there. I love the Ayton fit. No one's really shocked by it, but the biggest shock was that Mikal Bridges, because when Mikal Bridges was selected by the Sixers, Jake, all of our Demon King 324 was going crazy in our live stream. Those are 76ers fans, absolutely going nuts throughout the whole draft live stream, going crazy because they got their guy. And we were really sure that Mikal Bridges would fit on that Philadelphia team. And then Phoenix takes Zaire Smith, and I really like that fit. Young player, going to be able to develop. It's going to take him time. And then, the live stream starts blowing up. And like, trade. And then it comes out, Zaire Smith, that 2021, and Mikal Bridges, is the trade. And we look at Phoenix, and Phoenix now gets the ability to possibly build one of the best defensive wing combos in Josh Jackson and Mikal Bridges. And people crap on DeAndre Ayton for his defensive abilities. And yes, he's not the most aggressive when it comes to playing defense and being a rim protector. He doesn't have the highest IQ. He's pretty decent switching for a big man. He's got nice feet, and he's got athleticism, and he can grow into a good defender. When we look at Devin Booker, Devin Booker isn't a jack of all trades here. He's not a great defender, but he's got size. So that's one thing that now you have the ability to, let's say you're going up against a Golden State. You have the ability for Mikal Bridges or Josh Jackson to go up and take on a big matchup in Kevin Durant. Then you have the second best, guard, or Josh Jackson or Mikal Bridges, go up and take on Steph Curry and put a physical body on him. Or even Devin Booker himself can put a physical body on him and at least make shots difficult for Steph Curry. And then with Klay Thompson, you have guys that similarly match up height-wise and athleticism-wise in Josh Jackson and Mikal Bridges. So this is a matchup, and I'm not saying the Warriors, Suns better watch out for or Warriors better watch out for the Suns, but this is a really nice pairing because down the line, if you see this NBA go to more wings and offensive oriented wings, we're going to see and look at the defensive pairing and defensive studs of Josh Jackson and Mikal Bridges. And they both have the ability to shoot from the outside. Josh Jackson's still developing as a shooter. And some people were like, oh, they better go point guard here. They better take a Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He wasn't on the board. You still get Mikal Bridges for, I think, a fairly good price. And then in the second round, you go out and get Okubo. And Okubo, to me, can be an absolute star in this league. I mean, he's got the ability to shoot from deep. Like, this kid has absolute range. And if he's just a bench player, having a six-man that has that range, look how dangerous that is with Lou Williams. Look how dangerous that is with Eric Gordon on the Rockets. Having a guy with that range, having the ball handling skills as well, this is a guy that needs to fill out a bit more, but he's only 20 years old, played in the LNB, which is, created great pros. Clint Capella, Frank Nikitalina, Nick Batum's from there. I think Tony Parker's from there. Even Boris Diaw, I think, is from there. The LNB has created NBA pros, and we've seen them adapt to the NBA game. He's, Eli Okubo is going to be at least introduced to a weight program, and he's a guy that, at worst, I think, when he fully develops, he's going to be a six-man for you and be a nice second guard for you. And at his best, he's your starting point guard who has deep range and has passing abilities and the ability to drive as well. He's not a bigger body, but again, if he fills out, he might have that ability. So the Suns fixed their point guard problem. They added a wing that, again, it wasn't entirely necessary, but now you have a scorer right now in TJ Warren, who's on a fairly cheap contract, maybe 4 years, $52 million. He's going to be a guy that TJ Warren can come off the bench and be a scorer for you. And some people say, he's a guy that isn't really working from the outside. He's not a three-point shooter, but he's dangerous in that mid-range game. And he's going to be a guy that's going to be tough for second units to match up on because of his quickness, because of his length, and because of his ability to rise up from mid-range. So having the flexibility with your wings in Josh Jackson, TJ Warren, and Mikal Bridges, you also fill out that 5 role and you get a potential stud in DeAndre Ayton. I absolutely love this Suns draft. We look at Marquise Chris, we look at Dragan Bender. These guys really haven't been great so far, but they're both 20 years old. DeAndre Ayton, 19 years old. We look at Devin Booker. It's been crazy to see his growth, but he's only 21, 22 years old. Josh Jackson, 20 years old. And Mikal Bridges, weirdly enough, he's the senior on the team pretty much, but 21 years old for Mikal Bridges. This is a young core, and Okubo as well, 20 years old, I believe, and then TJ Warren, I think, is 24, 25. So we look at the young core, they have 7 guys right there that can be a part of this future. And you can't look up and now scoff at Ryan McDonough because he did something where he has now stars on this team, he has guys that fit the modern NBA, and he has depth on this team. And you can't pass that up. And especially with this team growing, there might be guys that don't hit that plateau. Okubo might be a whiff. We don't know what he's going to turn into. But again, you still have Devin Booker to play the 1. And let's look at the backups already on that team. You have Brandon Knight, who Brandon Knight was a #1 player in his high school days. He was a dynamic guard. And obviously injuries has held him back, and he's got a really bad contract. But if he's able to come back and at least be productive for you, maybe you can move him. Or if Okubo's not ready yet, he can be a guy that can be that secondary ball handler. And we talk about Chris and Bender. Bender's probably going to be the starter because he has that ability to stretch out. And again, it's going to take a while for him to kind of adapt. And I think people are ready to give up on him because they see what Jason Tatum or Markkanen can do stepping into the NBA. But Bender is going to take some time. And I think people are too rushed to already call people bust because they want to be right. Because, hey, Dragan Bender's an international player. I don't like international players. So I'm going to call him a bust because he hasn't lived up to a certain plateau. Now Bender has the ability to be the 5th option in that starting lineup. The pressure's off of him. And if he's able to develop one skill and possibly turn into the next Ryan Anderson, I know Rocket fans are throwing up at that, but that guy got paid for a reason because he has one skill as a 7-footer shooting threes. Now, if Bender turns into that and they don't overpay for him, you have the ability to stretch the floor out at that 4 position at a position that's going to be tough to defend. I mean, you don't have a lot of 7'4" that can defend on the outside and really try to block a guy like Dragan Bender, and especially if he's open with the ability to create that Devin Booker's shown, 5 assists last year, Ayton on the inside, having to deal with him, Josh Jackson's ability to cut, TJ Warren's ability to cut, and both those abilities to slash, and same with Mikal Bridges, who also can add a 3-point shot to that. I mean, this is a Suns team that is really starting the makings of a team that, I don't want to say super team, but they have the ability to turn into a playoff team and a consistent playoff team in Phoenix. And Phoenix has had their struggles. But let's look at what they've done recently. And, they possibly missed on Marquise Chris. That might be one of them. But Bender, I still think can, turn it around. Ayton is most likely going to be a hit. Mikal Bridges is one of the safest picks in this draft. Him, Wendell Carter Jr., and Luka Doncic were the 3 safest picks in my mind in this NBA draft. You got him. And Okubo, there's not a lot of pressure on him to develop. And if he does, then boom, you got a backup point guard, and you still have that ability to bring back Devin Booker. And now you also tell Devin Booker, we have 8 who's going to be here for the next 5 years. We have Mikal Bridges, who's going to be here for the next 5 years, and it's going to be a guy who can really take off, pressures on you defensively and help you shoot, help you find guys on the outside who can shoot. Dragan Bender is now going to be able to work on one single skill and become a dynamic shooter. And Josh Jackson, you saw what he did last year. He really grew in the second half. He became a great defender. We have the making of you becoming the star of the next super team, Devin Booker. And that's how you sell it to this kid. And if I'm Devin Booker, I'm looking at Ryan McDonough and what he's done so far. And yeah, he started off slow, but this is a guy that was, looked at as a GM whiz kid when he was first hired. And so far, I think Ryan McDonough has a really impressive resume. So if I'm a Suns fan, I'm not. But if I was a Suns fan like our boy Z, I would, if I was feeling anything less than ecstatic, I would need to check my brain. I would need to really re-examine my life, because you hit on every single need and you didn't really give up that much. And you might be looking at, Zaire Smith and that future player, especially because Miami might be bad in 2021. But then again, that's a Pat Riley team. That's a team that might be able to free up some cap space, bring in a big free agent, and they still have Spoelstra. So that Miami team, again, might not be around. And with Philly might try to take that pick and then trade it to the Spurs for Kawhi Leonard, if that is what they're trying to do and trying to desire and trying to jock for the ability to bring in Kawhi Leonard. So that might not even be a part of the trade. So you just might be trading Mikal Bridges for Zaire Smith, which in my mind is a win. So I look at the Suns, and I don't think they took any big risks. I think they had people fall to them, and I think they actually made smart moves. So I absolutely love what the Suns did. I was surprised with that Zaire Smith and Mikal Bridges trade because, again, I was for sure dead certain that the 76ers were going to take him when he came up on the board. They did. And I was for sure certain that, he was a great fit, and he was going to be able to step into that playoff team that, won 50 games, really exceeded their expectations, and be able to step in and help them win games. I thought that was going to be a nice fit, but, Brett Brown, who now runs that show in Philadelphia, didn't think it was going to be in the cards. And for Philly fans, I know Jake's going to probably be watching this, and if Demon King's watching this, but there are a lot of anger that was going on when that trade was made on the 76ers side. Just to talk about that briefly, I think the thing is that when I saw it, I saw that move was being made for Kawhi, or at least putting yourself in the position to get yourself Kawhi, because what's the whole idea of the process? Brett Brown's been there for the whole process. He knows what the process is like. He might not be hinky, but this guy has been through the ringer. He knows what it's like to be a part of the process, and the process is about getting assets and turning them into something big. That 2021 Miami Heat pick could be possibly something big and used for positioning to take it and turn it into the Kawhi Leonard. And you take that Sacramento pick next year, and you take that and put it into Kawhi Leonard. And maybe they want Markelle Fultz. Well, if you get rid of Fultz, you're going to need another guard. And Zaire Smith has the ability to possibly turn into what you need next to Ben Simmons in a shooter and defense, and the ability to guard quicker guards. Because Ben Simmons wasn't bad defensively at all, guarding ones. But if you do have troubles with Ben Simmons not being quick enough, or maybe you need to change a pace like they did during that Boston series where Ben Simmons was off the floor and TJ McConnell was on, and they were better with TJ on, you have that ability with Zaire Smith. And Zaire, in your mind, might be safer than Markelle Fultz, because, yeah, Fultz was the number 1 pick, but let's look at what he did last year. They didn't want to play him in the playoffs. They weren't trusting him. We don't know what was going on for the first 72 games with Markelle Fultz. So if you want to unload him because he has that number 1 draft pick, that potential, and take some of those draft picks that you've accumulated through the process and take that and turn it into Kawhi Leonard, are you going to be happier with Kawhi Leonard for the future and that massive cap space that you do have? Or are you going to be still thinking about Mikal Bridges? Because if you win an NBA championship with Kawhi Leonard that you got from that Phoenix Suns trade, you're not going to be upset at all. You're going to be throwing a party and jumping on light posts just like the Philadelphia Eagles fans were. So if I was a Philly fan, I'd relax and I'd trust the process. And if I was a Suns fan, I'd be ecstatic because you have a starting five of the future, you have depth, and you have a smart GM in Ryan McDonough. Let me know what you think about the Suns draft. Personally, I think they won the draft easily, by far. They got three of my favorite players in this draft. Again, one of the safest players, I think, in Mikal Bridges, a dynamic point guard, potentially a dynamic point guard in Okubo. And then clearly, DeAndre Ayton was number 1 or number 2 on mostly every single person's board who was doing a mock draft or a big board for a reason. This guy, 7'1", looks like a superhero. I mean, this guy is built like Dwight Howard was at his peak, and he's, 19 years old? I mean, this guy's ridiculous. Just physically ridiculous, DeAndre Ayton, and he has some basketball skills to go with it. So let me know what you think about the Suns draft. I think they hit the nail on the head. Shout out Ryan McDonough. If you're a fan, what's up? Hire me. I'll be an intern. Let me know. But we're going to move on.